Hello, my friends, and welcome to Lola's Mindset Reset, your podcast for your soul and personal growth. My name is Loreen, aka Lola, and my vision is to have a positive impact on many people's lives. Today, we're having a topic that probably all of us can relate to because everyone has their own individual fears and challenges, and at some point all of us are struggling. Nothing is perfect, and I would like to talk about my tools to solve fear and anxiety and to become braver and find a way going through anxiety episodes. And we're gonna talk about what fear is in detail and what happens in our brain and how and what we can practice in order to overcome it. And I'm sharing my protocols that I follow in order to stop overthinking, that I developed by myself and with the help of therapists. So I hope you're ready and you got already something to take notes, because now we are going to start with this episode about fear, anxiety, and overthinking. So, peeps, a small thing I wanted to mention before starting today. I'm not a doctor. I'm sharing the things that I've learned and my tools and experiences that helped me on my journey. And it's an offer. You can check if the things could also help you on your journey, but it doesn't necessarily mean that my tools that I'm offering here are a universal cure for all of your problems, okay? Anyway, my background is biology, and I worked almost 10 years in science, in the lab actually, and I was specialized in neurosciences, working on different kind of projects, so I make always sure that things that I'm sharing here have like a scientific base, based on publications, books, and knowledge that I gained throughout the years. And I try to offer you a combination of science, personal experience, and basics of modern therapy and spiritual life coaching. But as I said, I'm not a doctor, and it's always a good idea to consult a doctor if you have any issue. Okay, so important. Nevertheless, self-therapy and spiritual life coaching, and also learning new things from books, podcasts, papers, therapists, coaches, everything in a combination can offer a very helpful support on your healing journey. And that's why I'm here, I'm doing what I'm doing. And because the combination helped me a lot. I have very positive experiences, and I learned a lot through books and podcasts and stuff. Anyway, I'm just sharing my experiences that helped me in different situations, and they are my truth right now, and it doesn't mean that they have to be your truth as well, or they are the perfect fit for you. And actually, it's like what Buddhism taught me, that you shouldn't believe everything that you're told, because there is no universal truth. It's an invitation to listen carefully, to check it for you, to prove it for you, to try it and see if it's fitting your life. And when I learned more about Buddhism, it was like somehow different, than the beliefs and the religion that I knew. Well, I didn't grow up very religious, but we were Christians, and there is a book and everything that's written there is true, and to question your God or your book, or to believe in several gods, it's like, not very common, let's say. And in Buddhism, it was like the first religion that I found where it's kind of free. And instead of this kind of rules, you find more like invitation, inspiration, and tips that that made me feel very curious about Buddhism, Hinduism, spirituality in general. And it was the first religion I encountered in which all living beings had a soul, and animals were not like considered as less valuable beings. And I really liked it. It was kind of new and different kind of way to look at things. And it was fascinating that that it was so much about like love and empathy and forgiveness. I just liked it. And I'm neither a classic Buddhist nor Christian or anything else. I was just discovering and learning something about it, and it was kind of the start of my spiritual journey. And so I implemented some Buddhism inspired thoughts and beliefs in my personal spiritual practice. Anyway, it's not a religion class or something. I just wanted to say that my truth doesn't need to be your truth. And sometimes one truth that you have doesn't exclude another one. So there are several truths that can actually coexist. And things can always change. Maybe the things I'm telling you now will have changed in some years, as well as my truth from 5 years ago is not my truth of today anymore. So in general, I'm just recommending to be always curious and curious to learn, to question things in order to find out the right way for you, like personally. So I'm inviting you to listen and check if the things could fit for you as well. It's an invitation, no obligation, so feel free. And even if you don't like it, no worries, it's fine for me. You don't need to listen to it. So I'm already talking too much of it. So I would say let's go and let's start with the topic. In my life, I had to face many of my fears, and I still have things that scare me, of course. And I'm just like you, on my journey, I do have fears, I do have topics I'm working on. And just because I solved already some things in my life doesn't mean that I'm perfect or I'm having an answer for any situation. I'm just here to learn and to grow, and I do have my construction science and my topics that I want and need to work on. And it's fine. You don't need to be 100% fixed or healed before being able to help others or to be loved or to give love. And healing is a journey. And you need patience. So let's talk about fear. What is fear and what is it good for? So fear is basically a feeling that is there to protect us. Due to fear, we enter in the fight, flight, or freeze mode in order to protect our own life. And it has evolved as a survival mechanism to help us react quickly to life-threatening situations. And all this happens in a brain region known as amygdala, which is responsible to process our emotions. So from an evolutionary perspective, fear is our lifesaver. Because back then in Stone Age, we could either escape quickly and hide or had the strength to fight the saber-toothed tiger. It's really cool and also incredible what our body is able to do for us. But today, in a world without the threats from Stone Age, from Neanderthal age, we have fears of different kind of things, and usually there is no need to fight or to run away. And our brain is now often misinterpreting situations as potentially dangerous, caused by our thoughts that are, of course, actually not life-threatening. But our brain is still built in the same way and responds to stimulation like in the good old times. So if we are scared and stressed, our whole body gets into the flight, fight, or freeze mode. So it means your heart beats faster, your breathing quickens, your muscles receive more blood flow, your digestion slows down, and yeah, short term, it can be helpful because it can push your performance in some ways. But, if we are in the long run under constant fear and stress, it becomes harmful to your health, to our health. And nowadays, as I said, a lot of peeps they struggle like with anxiety, and huge triggers actually for anxiety are social media. Endless scrolling, overstimulation, and screen time, is affecting your health and your energy levels due to permanent distraction of your attention. There is screen addiction and loneliness because more and more people are living inside the virtual world instead of going out and really interacting with each other. And another thing due to social media is there is a lot of comparison, and comparison kills your unique way of being, your individual characteristic expression of yourself. And if you want to do exactly what someone else does, you're ignoring your individual skills and talents that makes you so special and so important for this world. And comparison, with a supposedly perfect life of others just pulls you down. And yeah, that most of them are fake. That the perfect lives are just fake lives, and it's so incredibly energy draining to compare yourself to others, to try to be different than you actually are, to be scared, to overthink, and to have the feeling that you cannot enjoy the actual moment because in your mind you're always in another place or time. And you can imagine fear like as a process with exponential rise and rapid fall. So the fear comes and it feels like unbearable, and it's getting stronger and stronger, and usually we are stopping the fear on its way up with strategies we learned to avoid it, to go through it. So for example, you feel unsafe in the dark, so you turn on the light. You cannot sleep at night, you turn on the TV in order to focus on something else. You don't feel safe in your relationship because you brought trust issues or separation anxiety into your relationship. So you call, you control, you check on him or her, whatever. And for me, an example, you're scared of needles, and going to the doctor to collect some blood is horror, and you don't go there. And yeah, many other things. You had a car accident, very common actually. You had a car accident once and now you're scared to drive, and so you don't drive. Or you're scared to fly and you don't fly. And it can also be like conflicts, conversations, presentations that can be scaring. Your strategy is avoiding the situation always as long as it's possible, and you interrupt the curve of fear in the face of exponential growth. But whatever it is, sometimes or at some point it won't be avoidable anymore. And even if it is, you will never overcome it and never grow, and you keep allowing fear to control your life. And actually, there is no thought or way of thinking that takes away your fear. So the bad news are, my peeps, you have to go through it, and you cannot solve it with logic because you already know that the scenarios you're thinking of are not very probable, and you probably know that you're making it worse with your strategy of avoidance and overthinking. So you need to do it, and you need to do it lovingly, because as well as everything else, it's an inner process. Our brain is an association machine, and at some point in your life you connected a situation with something scary, threatening, and whatever. And if you never work on reconnect your neurons in a different kind of way due to exposure therapy, you might have the same fears the rest of your life. And it's getting problematic, and it can get in disorder if it hinders your everyday life because you have so many fears and worries. Or you're getting sick from the consequences of staying under constant stress, like living under constant stress and fear. And it can actually result in an obsessive compulsive disorder, an OCD, what can make your life incredibly exhausting. But the good thing is, peeps, thanks to neuroplasticity, we can change our connection of our neurons, meaning we can override or break connections and form new ones, and our brain structures can even grow if we train them. So if you imagine now, again, the curve of fear, the fear comes, and instead of interrupting your fear in the exponential phase, you let it be. You go into it and you try not to do what you usually do, and you try to endure it. Because most panic attacks last no longer than 30 minutes. And it has like a simple reason, because your neurons in your brain cannot fire forever. And at some point they are completely exhausted and they stop transmitting the signals. It means that if you're going through it, your fear will decrease naturally, and you will learn, so your brain will learn, that there is no reason to be scared because nothing happens to you. And with every time you do it, it's getting less and less until it finally disappears. And there is also an extreme form of exposure therapy where patients are writing themselves like a script with their biggest fear or worst case scenario, and they record how they read the script to themselves, and they listen to it over and over again in order to go through it, in order to go through their worst case scenarios and to let it be, to not be able to interrupt their thoughts. And they're doing it to take away the power of the fear by exposure therapy, and to realize that your anxiety will lower with time. So what I want to say is that you need to go through it in order to get rid of it. So you feel that your fear comes and you welcome it. You go into it and you endure it until it decreases. And it will decrease because nothing will happen to you. And it works especially for like fears of a certain situation, like whatever it is, doctor's visits, dentist, darkness, animals, water, ocean, and whatever it is. So you need to be brave for sure. So you need some braveness to decide that you would like to try it, that you would like to go through it. And if you try it, peeps, I promise it works. So I was very scared of many things in life, especially as a teenager. And at some point I decided that I didn't want to be so stressed and scared anymore. And that, of normal daily situations like doctors and dentists and stuff. And I've always dreamed of to travel, and I was sure that I wanted to do it. I wanted to get rid of my fear of flying. And another example, I almost had a car accident when I was very young. And after that situation, I was incredibly scared to drive again. And I really had to force myself, I swear. But I knew if I would avoid it, I would never ever drive again. Never, peeps, never. So the first step is to take the decision for you that your fear will no longer control your life. The next step is to try to go through it from the beginning till the end. And the third step is to change the way of treating your fear, the way of dealing with it. So it's important that you stop trying to suppress your feelings. If you're realizing, okay, I'm scared, the fear is here. And sometimes it's also possible that you have like physical symptoms. So you don't need to be scared that you're sick. You just need to understand where your symptoms are coming from. If it's like psychosomatic symptoms, and of course if you have pain or something else, go to doctor. No discussion here, but there are psychosomatic symptoms, and first of all, tell yourself you're not sick. It's because I'm scared and I'm stressed, and it can be like a very high sound in your ear. It can be like your heart is pumping really fast or whatever. If you're scared and stressed, you need to understand that like fear is looking for a ventile. And instead of going crazy and trying to fight it by avoiding and pushing it away, you welcome it. I know you're here because you want to tell me something, because I'm able to learn something here. You want to show me something. You want me to understand something here, and you welcome it. You don't put pressure by pushing it away, because pressure generates counter pressure always. So you're saying, or you can say, hello, my lovely fear. Nice to see you. I know you're here to protect me, and I'm thankful that you're here to tell me something and to show me where we can get braver, where we can check a situation. But I'm a big girl, or I'm a big boy. I'm adult, and I can see that you don't need to warn me anymore because I can take care of us now. Why don't you give me your hand and we can go exactly there and see if the situation is really as bad as you told me or not? Okay, so change the way you're thinking and talking to yourself, to your fear. And being brave doesn't mean that you're not scared. Being brave means that you're doing the things even though you're scared, with your fear in your hand as your protective like animal. You can also imagine your fear as an animal, like inside of you, that wants to warn you even if it doesn't know if the situation is really dangerous for you or not. And then you can take your fear and you do it together. And with this strategy, of treating your fear and your scared inner child lovingly, I have overcome almost all of my fears. So for example, as a teenager, I was so scared of going to the doctor for blood collection. And I was imagining like crazy scenarios where the needle hurt so bad and blood everywhere, and huge horror movie. And one day they discovered that I had like hypothyroidism. So of course I needed to start medication treatment. And in order to adjust my meds, I needed to go there like every 2 weeks or so. So it then was meaning that I was forced to go through one of my biggest fears, and but I did it. Every time I was going there, talking to myself, like I would talk to a scared little girl taking my hand and going through it. I told myself, we are safe. I know you're scared, but I got you. We are adults, we are big girl, and we can take care. And we can assess situations and would never put ourselves in real danger. So we're going through it together and we will do it. We will be so proud of us. And afterwards, we're gonna do something really nice and we're gonna feel so good and strong and proud. And we did it, peeps. And with every time, it was getting easier. And, today, I'm not scared anymore. Of course I don't like it. I mean, who likes it, But I'm able to go there. I am able to sleep the night before like normally. I'm not fainting or anything. I did it, by willpower, love for my inner child that is afraid, and repeated practice, repeated exposure therapy. And it's like that with driving, with doctors, with conversations, with presentations. So you need to go through it, and with time it's getting better and easier. And you can also do it, yeah? Just take it step by step. Start with something small and practice. If you're scared in the dark, try every day to stay a little longer in the dark. Your brain has to learn from scratch that the situation is not dangerous. And it will only learn if it's exposed and learns that it's wasted energy to be scared. And it gives you back your freedom. My mom used to say, fear is eating your soul. So, peeps, we don't want that our soul is eaten. So, don't let your soul be eaten. Please, peeps, your soul is so important, so protect it. And another thing, what is very helpful in case of anxiety attacks or thoughts that you have, is like to check what kind of voices or different characters are operating before, during, and after your anxiety or panic attack, or in general fear, yeah? And to identify them and trying to enter into a dialogue. And fear in general is connected to your inner child that needs safety, protection, and an adult to lead it through the situation. So, for example, when I'm getting into my anxiety, usually there are many voices. There is this voice or thoughts, you can also call it, that I call the grumpy aunt, that tells me what bad things could happen and tells me that we can't be sure that everything is okay, and I cannot trust, and it plays the tape of terror in an endless loop inside of me. And then we have like my little version of myself that believes all this bullshit, and of course is scared now of getting hurt and to be exposed to bad things. And it's the little Lola that is sitting next to me and crying, and I have my healthy adult Lola that is lovingly trying to calm down my little scared girl by explaining the situation to her, telling her why it's not dangerous and that we are adults and that we would never expose us to real dangerous situations and that nothing is gonna happen to us. And then I have another character inside of me, another voice that I call my sergeant. It's very disciplined and consequent and kind of hard, that is helping to interrupt the loop of negative thinking by telling us to get our fucking shit together and enough is enough. It's the pusher. And it's not only operating in like anxiety situations. My pusher, my sergeant, is also helping me in to hold on if I want to give up, or in different kind of situations that I need to push myself a lot. So it's very important character in general. And Anyway, my sergeant in my dialogue of anxiety situations, and in general, it's, yeah, I'm trying to go into dialogue with all of my different characters inside my head. So to somehow go through it by strengthening my loving, healthy adult in order to calm down my crying little Lola, and my sergeant to guide us through it and to push away our grumpy aunt that puts, the negative thoughts inside our head and makes us doubt and scares us. In general, it doesn't mean that our grumpy aunt is a bad person. It's wonderful that we have her because she's here to protect us and warn us in possibly dangerous situations. So we do need her. But sometimes she's just confused because she appears in places where she shouldn't appear, because she's a very old mechanism and part of a very old brain. So she's not able to distinguish between a threat from the saber-toothed tiger and a thought about the uncertain future, or whatever it is for you. It can be the past or whatever it is. So we need our inner adult and our sergeant that tells her when she's wrong and not needed. And it works in situations like if you're scared of certain things, as well as for overthinking, anxiety. And I know it sounds like a bit crazy and a bit unusual. It sounds like esoteric stuff from a crazy person who has voices in her head. No, joking, of course. If you try to listen carefully what exactly is happening in moments of anxiety in your head, you will realize that there are many different versions of yourself, like in a conflict, and you're like overwhelmed, which is completely normal, because if you imagine that 5 persons are talking to you and shouting at you in the same moment, of course you're overwhelmed. And you can identify your characters and their tasks and purposes. So why are they acting like they're acting? So for example, I practiced it once with my therapist by using chairs that were in the room, and we were moving them. So each character had like its own chair, and I was positioning each chair regarding their power in my head. So for example, my grumpy aunt, the chair of my grumpy aunt was the closest to me because it's the voice that is the loudest in moments of anxiety, because it's your voice that tells you that something is wrong and something will go wrong and stuff. So the grumpy aunt with the endless tape sitting very close to me, and next to me there's my little Lola, the small girl that is scared, and a little further back there is my sergeant and my healthy adult. And I was changing chairs in order to speak from all perspectives to myself, and to visualize a dialogue and to understand their reasons. And in the end of the task, the position of characters, of chairs in this case, changed, because during the conversation I was strengthening my sergeant and my healthy adult and pushing away the grumpy aunt, because it was weakening her position when I realized that we are actually 3 against 1. And if I can strengthen my inner voices that know it better, it will weaken automatically the position of the confused grumpy aunt voice that wants to scare us. And from then on, I practiced it in every situation in which I was afraid, in combination with exposure therapy in order to go through it, and my anxiety became less and less frequent, So I tried to go into the dialogue with all the characters. And it's like the most important part of dealing with our fears. So doing the exposure therapy with yourself, welcoming your feelings and accept them instead of hating and pushing them away, and working with your inner parts, your inner characters involved in the conflict, and treat your fear and your inner child with love and empathy. Especially when it comes to overthinking, or better, you start to worry, you overthink, and then you enter an anxiety. I have like some protocols that I apply in anxious moments. So I know, as I said, it's a huge struggle. And maybe it can also help you. But I wanted to say first briefly something about anxiety, because there are different kind of anxiety disorders. So we have, for example, the catastrophic type that believes that something really bad is going to happen. And it can also come together with like separation anxiety and specific types of phobia. And then we have like the evaluation anxiety. So it's a social anxiety, and it's about the fear to be watched and judged. And then there is like the losing control anxiety of losing control, which can be a panic disorder, and an obsessive compulsive disorder, an OCD, because an obsessive compulsive disorder has the function to compensate the feeling of losing control. Not always, but very often. And it's also connected to the anxiety of uncertainty, which is the fear of not knowing what's going to happen. And there, it's possible that it's also connected to an OCD, because here it can also have the function of compensating the feeling, the fear of not knowing what's going to happen. So it's also connected to losing control of a certain situation, and you compensate it with a obsessive compulsive disorder. And it can be like washing, it can be cleaning issue, it can be repetitive, so repeated movements, repeated words. So an OCD can have different kind of phases. Anyway, so when I enter in like worrying loops, overthinking, and anxiety, I usually put the worst case scenario versus the best case scenario. So this is the first thing that I'm trying to do. So you can decide what kind of movie is playing in your head. And instead of, choosing the horror movie, you can choose the beautiful documentary about the happiest life ever, about your happiest life ever. And if you're worrying and you realize that you are worrying, you can change the movie and you imagine with the same powerful fantasy that imagines the big drama over there, you're imagining the most beautiful scenario possible. And you're taking back your power about your mind. So, you might know how exhausting it can be to worry, and we are worrying so much, peeps, about things like money, relationships, and whatever it is. And it's so unnecessary. Really, it's not necessary to worry so much, because if you ask yourself if this issue matters in 5 years, in most of the cases the answer is no. So for me, it's so exhausting and it costs a lot of energy. If I catch myself worrying, I try to realize that it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. And, it's okay and completely normal to worry, and you can just like feel okay about it, because it's natural, but you can start to be soft and understanding with yourself by accepting it as completely normal. And worrying and anxiety is a reaction of our brain that wants to always have everything under control. You know, it's a protection mechanism, as I said, to survive from long ago. And your mind is thinking, oh, cool, if I imagine this and that and I'm projecting it into the future, I'm already prepared. But the reason here is fear, and you know, and you try to compensate it with feeling prepared for whatever happens in the future. And it's an illusion. And it's because our brain wants to protect us from change and from leaving the comfort zone, because it wants us to stay in situations that we know that they are safe, and the way we used to do things was always working because we survived. But if things change, our brain doesn't know what will happen, and that's why it's trying to keep us away from potentially dangerous situations that we cannot judge if they are potentially dangerous, or our brain cannot judge if they are potentially dangerous. And it's not helpful for our daily lives and our decisions that we need to take. Yeah. So if you're worrying, overthinking, anxious, so you can maybe try to also follow a protocol, for example, like mine. The important thing is that it stays always the same, just to strengthen the connections in your brain, because the more often you practice, the easier and quicker you can interrupt negative loops. So what I'm doing. First, I realized that I'm overthinking, and then that I started to dive way too deep into, for example, the worst case scenario. So I'm catching myself and I'm grabbing my phone and I'm setting an alarm for 5 minutes. And within this 5 minutes, I'm allowing myself to cry, to scream, to exaggerate, to overthink, whatever it is in the moment. And when the alarm rings, I stop. You can also say the word like stop loudly to yourself. And now I'm asking myself the following questions. Is it really true what I'm thinking? Is this good for me? Is it possible to interpret the situation in another kind of way? Is it probable that this happens to me? And if yes, how probable is it? And what would happen in the worst case scenario? Will I be able to find a solution in the worst case scenario? And yeah, what you can also do is like imagine that the worst case scenario is really happening, and you ask yourself if this would be as bad as you think, or what exactly would be so dramatic about it if it would happen. And in many cases, if you're honest with yourself, you will discover that even the worst thing that you imagine to happen is not as dramatic as you think. And then you can judge if all this is based on real facts or just imagination. Yeah, and you can tell yourself that you trust the universe and that everything will be there at the right time, and that everything is happening for you, and that you will find solutions no matter what. And try to remember like how things were going in the past, and ask yourself, how often did the worst case scenario came true? And if it came true, did I find solutions? And now you ask yourself, what would be the best case scenario? What would be the best case scenario, and how probable is the best case scenario? Do my thoughts lead to any result? Are my thoughts really helpful? And is it worth it to try it anyway? And with the last question, like, is it worth it to try it anyway? You evaluate the risk, because, you know, it's possible, that the worst case scenario is happening, but it's more probable that the best case scenario will happen. So it's worth it to take the risk in order to have the opportunity to experience the best case scenario ever. And I would lose it if I wouldn't try it. And it's an opportunity to grow and to become braver. You know. So you heard now many questions, and in order to answer these questions, you use, your logic, realistic mind, and it's even more powerful if you write them down, because just thinking could be interrupted again by negative thoughts. So write them down, answer your questions, and read all your answers and your risk evaluation loudly to yourself. And now you start talking actively about the best case scenario, and you invite all the positive feelings to fill your heart. You imagine with all your power the best possible thing that could happen. And you feel that your heart is getting warmer and warmer. And you feel that happiness inside of you because everything worked out so well. Even better than you ever imagined. And you're so proud, and the warm feeling is running through your whole body like a warm golden light, and you're concentrated now, and you try to keep it inside your heart. And you can support it with or by breathing the 4-7-8. So the 4-7-8 is you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 7 seconds, and you breathe out for 8 seconds. And you repeat it as many times as needed. And we can do it once together if you want. So we breathe in for 4 seconds. We hold our breath for 7 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we breathe out for 8 seconds. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And if you feel loaded with positive energy and you feel like way calmer due to the breath work, you try to stand up and you do something else. If possible, with physical activation or something that occupies all your focus. So once you have all the positivity and you feel way calmer, you start to do something you like. You make a tea, you read a book, you put your favorite song and you dance, for example. You eat something you like, you go out to take a walk in nature, you call a friend, something positive, that needs your full attention in order to break out of the overthinking loop. And to get out of the loop, you can also create a little shock to distract your attention. So, for example, biting a lemon or taking a cold shower or taking like a cool pack for injuries from the freezer on your arm, just to have a stimulus to immediately interrupt your thoughts. And you can combine it. You can start with like a little shock to distract your attention immediately, and then you go into the questions, into the positivity and the best case scenario work and the breath work. And it may not work perfectly for the first couple of times, but if you keep doing it the same way and you repeat it every time you're in a loop, you will become better. You will get better. And more you will take back the control over your thoughts by running this protocol. And with time, commitment, and repeated practice, you will be able to stop negative overthinking. very quickly, you know. Remember that everything we overthink and imagine is just existing in our head, and it's not reality. You know, our mind is projecting something into the future that is not based on facts. It's an illusion about things that in most of the cases will not happen anyways. Yeah, and no amount of anxiety makes any difference to anything that is going to happen. No amount of anxiety makes any difference to anything that is going to happen. Fear is always about a thing that you think will happen in the future, and it means that it doesn't exist right now. So you're suffering from something that doesn't exist. Isn't it ridiculous? And regarding the past, you can't change what already happened, so there is no value in wishing it were different. You know, and even if we have like this scenario when things go wrong, you know, in the rare case that the worst case scenario is happening to you, allow yourself to be anxious. You can be angry, you can cry, you can scream, but like before, set yourself a timer for not more than 5 minutes. And when the time is up, you take a deep breath and you say 3 powerful words. Can't change it. And the thing is, our brain will always find a solution. Our brain is made for reacting fast, and it's working efficiently. It's flexible, and it can adapt to basically everything. You can trust yourself that even in the worst case scenario, if it's happening, you will find a solution. And yeah. And in everyday life, what you can also do, like you can start to take decisions faster. To practice, you could also go like into a restaurant and decide for your dish in 30 seconds. Or if you're thinking about where to travel, for example, you choose the region from your gut feeling. So you start using and trusting your intuition, because usually your first gut feeling is right. And it's so powerful, I promise magic will happen. And overthinking is often like, you know, about overwhelming. So we think of too many things about our future, and we look at how long the journey is and at the ultimate goal. But what can help here is to tell yourself, I will worry about that big thing when it comes. And it will come, and with every step I take, I'm getting closer. And what I can do now is to only think about your next step. What is my next step to take? And then do it. So the key here is to do more and think less, and don't be scared of taking wrong decisions, because there are only decisions, you know, and experiences based on your decisions. And there is no wrong or right, you know. Even no decision is a decision, because you decide to not change anything, and the things are staying the way they are, and maybe you are staying unhappy. But you're forgetting that you can not avoid change. Things will always change because it's natural. It's a natural universal law. Nothing exists without change. And, you know, if we are born, we grow. Our body changes, and even in the smallest particles in the universe, things change, and you cannot run and hide. If something feels not right, take a new decision. You can take new decisions every day. So nothing is like final. There are always many different possible ways, and you have the power to take decisions that can change your life. Okay? And you learn how to relax in the unknown. And in order to do so, the first and most important thing is to accept the change. Appreciate change and welcome the unknown. You gain trust in yourself and the universe, and you believe that everything will be all right. Your life is happening for you, and change is good and belongs to life. Without change, we wouldn't be able to learn and grow, and if things wouldn't change, we wouldn't be adults. And just imagine also bad situations wouldn't pass by if there would be no change. So instead of being scared of change, you could try to gain trust, because you know and you accept that everything is temporary and even the darkest days will pass by. So you stop avoiding and fearing change, and because change is wonderful, and you can make yourself aware that fear is always about a thing that you think will happen in the future, which means that it does not exist right now, or you are overthinking something that happened in your past, and it makes no difference because it's not existing anymore. Yeah, and we should stop fighting against it. Stop fighting against change, and focus on the things that you can change, taking decisions for your life, for your future, with your attitude, your mindset. Imagine if you're in the ocean and there is a strong current. It's actually, I read it in a really nice book. I don't recall. I can't recall the name now. But anyway, imagine your life as an ocean and there is a strong current. And if you swim against the current, it will cost you a lot of energy and it will be so exhausting, and you will fight and still you will not be able to move forward. And that it doesn't matter how hard you try to swim against the current, it will not stop and it will not change. Yeah, so why not accepting the current and swimming in the same direction? It will not be exhausting and you don't need to put so much energy, and still you will go faster and see where it's taking you, where it's going to bring you, and maybe you will discover a beautiful island. Who knows? Yeah. So peeps, that's it for today. I would sum up our topics of today and the tools that I recommended here. So we talked about fear, anxiety, worries, and overthinking. So my tools to deal with our fears were like doing the exposure therapy with yourself, welcoming your feelings and accept them instead of hating and fighting them, working with your inner parts, your inner characters involved in the conflict. Treat your fear and your inner child with love and empathy. And if you're worried, overthinking, or anxious, ask yourself several questions that help you to get a more realistic and rational focus. If you're overthinking, you could try to run a protocol like mine and repeat it. Try to imagine the best case scenario and create positive feelings. Accept and welcome change. And most importantly, never give up. Don't give up. I know it's hard and I know that it's a long way, but you can do it. You're strong, you're wonderful, and so important. So keep going. So peeps, that's it for today. Thank you so much for spending time together. I'm so happy that you're here, and thank you so much for your support. As always, you're welcome to leave some comments or messages on Instagram. You can find me at Lola's Mindset Reset. And I'm looking forward to hear from you. Please share your tips, your experiences, your strategies in order to deal with anxiety. Leave some love, and I'm leaving you now with a lot of love. And I'm sending you a really, really big hug, and I'm wishing you a wonderful day or night. See you soon, Lola.